Hi there and welcome to another weekly update. And there's still plenty of things going on this week as we sort of get towards Christmas. It still seems to be plenty busy enough, so a couple of things to talk about. So the first of those is a blog post I put out yesterday around Microsoft Teams usage and the fact that you can get that Teams usage information programmatically, and you can get it in code. Now, actually, the Microsoft Teams usage graphs came out a couple of weeks ago, and they were kind of blogged about. I didn't blog about them because they weren't particularly development focused, so I kind of saw it happen. I didn't really kind of respond to it. But actually, what I did notice was the API support, and I didn't write about it at the time, and it's only now that I've had a kind of a chance to kind of get that blog post out, and I feel a bit bad about that because it gives the impression in a way that somehow like the API support was lagging behind the visuals. The way you could kind of get them as a user was slightly lagging. It was in front of where you could get it programmatically, and that really wasn't the case. That isn't kind of clear if you look at the timelines, but I wanted to say that actually it was a really good thing to see the API support come so quickly, almost at the same time. It may even have been the same time. It just, the way it kind of gets announced and the way it kind of gets documented, it's a while before. It's hard to know whether they're exactly the same time or whether the API support was a little bit after. But anyway, it used to be you'd have to wait ages and ages and ages for API support that was doing the same thing and getting the same data as some kind of first-party Microsoft supplied visuals. That's not the case anymore, and I think it's mainly because the visuals, they use the same API calls under the hood. So actually getting the APIs done is just there's still a ton of work, and that's partly the problem as well. There's the legal, the documentation, the sign-off, all that stuff still needs to happen for the APIs, but that process has got so much better, and it's so good to see that actually, a couple of weeks ago we were saying, yes, we can now do, usage reporting in Teams. Actually, kind of about the same time we could do API support, and that's not totally clear by the timelines of me being kind of a bit stacked with work and not being able to get this blog post out. Anyway, all that to say, the blog post goes into some detail about getting information out. It's the same information that's in the usage. I don't think there's anything different that is, that's in the API that's not in the visuals, but there's a good number of calls. I think there's 6 calls, 6 different API calls you can make in each one of those. You can filter, or you can change the parameters to get different sets of data, and they all return data in the same common format, which is JSON, or alternatively in CSV. And they do a nice thing, actually, a kind of a clever idea for the CSV, which is good if you think you might have lots of data, and that is they don't return the CSV all like the CSV to you in one massive stream of raw data. They send you a link to a CSV file. So what you get back when you make the call is not a standard 200 OK response. You'll get back a 301, I think, which is the redirected, and in that response will be a URL to a file that is the CSV file containing the data that has just been made for you. And that's a clever idea, and it's kind of pre-authenticated, it's ready to go, and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of cool. You can also get the data in kind of straight JSON if you're taking it straight to visualizations or something like that. So you have some options there, which is good to see. Okay, let's shift gears into bot framework stuff. So last week I talked about the way the bot services moved to Azure and how the bot framework stuff was, everything had to be moved over and migrated by the end of March. Getting kind of some follow-up from people that the migrate buttons aren't available on all bots yet. I think there is some detail in not my blog post, but in Microsoft's blog post that I linked to last week around the migration process, and it depends a little bit on what type of bots you've written and exactly what services they use and how they're put together. The migrate buttons are coming is what the blog post says, even if they're not here already. So they are here for some types of bots and they're not here for other types of bots. And I think the intent is they will be there for all types of bots very soon. Anyway, separate to that, there's an announcement that came this week that the bot state service is also going to be retired on March the 31st. So I don't know if this is true or not, but like a logical conclusion one might draw from that is that when you do the migration, you won't have access to bot state service. I'm not sure that's entirely true, but as part of your migration process, you should probably start thinking about not using the bot state service because it is being retired. However, having said that, there's some good Azure extensions that you can use that have been put out by the bot framework team that are linked to in this blog post that I'll put a link to around using Azure table storage, or you could use DocumentDB, so that the Cosmos, the massive, replicated worldwide stuff. You can do it in local memory as well if you want, which is kind of good if you're just trying out, like getting started, development, proof of concepts and stuff, but you will lose your state data every time the service restarts. So you are better to persist it somewhere. Like Azure table storage is a good one. If you're massively high load and all across the world, then Cosmos might be a better choice. And there's some good examples for doing that on .NET and also Node.js. So that's all good. Yeah, it's pretty clever. It's good to see. It kind of makes sense. It doesn't necessarily make sense to have like this kind of state service being part of the bot service. You are not in control of that process, so you can't do anything to make it better. You can't make it like geo-replicate. You can't back it up. You can't control it really. So yeah, you can imagine as the bot framework has grown and got bigger and bigger, keeping track and managing that state for everyone who's using it is a bit of a pain. So yeah, it's good. So developers, you now need to look after your own state for bots, and you definitely need to do that by the end of March. All right, so next, I just wanted to call out. This is less of a blog post and more just pulling and like pointing you at a website, which is the Adaptive Cards website, which you may already know about. But if you don't, it's totally worth looking at. It's a beautiful site to look at. It's adaptivecards.io, and it's a kind of a showcase site for creating adaptive cards. So adaptive cards are the kind of the new way that if you're doing anything other than just sending plain text to your bot in bot framework, you'll kind of switch fairly quickly to adaptive cards. So it's embedded text, it's lovely layouts, it's things that look good on every device, and it's things that look good across channels as well. So yeah, there's a couple of things here, some of which we've seen before, but there's links, there's top level links to documentation and the Schema Explorer, also to the Visualiser. So the Visualiser is kind of cool. It's funny, I almost wrote something really similar to the Visualiser a while ago, and then what I wanted was this idea that on the left you had the code for your adaptive card, and on the right you had like an illustration of what that adaptive card would look like. And I was going to write something as a kind of a free community tool thing, and then I saw somebody had one. I think it was, I can't remember where it was exactly, but it was like really rough and it wasn't ready. And now it's good to see that it's made it into this kind of format. It's made it here, and everybody can use it. So it is very cool. So you literally get a text editor on the left-hand side of the window, and you see what the card looks like on the right-hand side. And the changes you make are instantly and in real time updated. So really, really good for just playing around with, like, how do I put these cards together to get them to look exactly how I want them to look. You can change how they show up, like you can change the like the program that is displaying them. So you can write something and for, say, Teams, and then say, well, how's that going to look in Skype? How's that going to look in Slack? And then you can see the things that are supported in each channel. Yep, and there's a ton of samples as well. It's a really good, it's a really well put together site. It's a really good resource. So if you're writing any kind of bots or anything like that, and you're doing anything more complicated than just plain text, you should definitely go here and use this to help kind of get started quickly. All right, last thing, and this is completely off topic, so I just wanted to leave you with something. If you found yourself with a bit of time over the festive period, as sometimes people do, you get shipped off to your families and you have to spend time with family and friends, and actually you want to take yourself away and do something completely different for a bit, then this is worth looking at. And it was announced a couple of weeks ago. So one of Microsoft's big pillars is AI, and one of the others is quantum computing. So quantum computing is not something I'm at all an expert in, but it is interesting. And recently Microsoft announced a Microsoft Quantum Development Kit. Okay, so an SDK and a kind of a kit for developers who want to get started with quantum. And there's a new programming language called Q#, which is quantum focused. And so this blog post that I'm going to link to has kind of information on getting started with that. It's got some simulators, so you've got quantum simulators locally, but also in Azure. You've got a bunch of samples, so it's a good way of just trying to understand what this new quantum thing is, and you can get all the theory and all the science, and that's fine, but how does it make a difference to me as a developer? What does it unlock that I couldn't do before? Is it speed? Is it capability? Is it new functionality? What is it? I think the samples and the kit are a good way to get started and kind of kick the tires on it and say, okay, how's this going to work? What's it going to do? So that was a bit different, but I thought I'd leave it with you. I'm going to try and get a chance to look at it over Christmas, and we'll see if anything interesting comes out of it. Okay, that's everything from me. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve, so have a wonderful Christmas time, whatever it is you're doing, and I will speak to you again next week.